Burbank, the media capital of the world.
Good afternoon, fellow council members. Good afternoon, members of the public, city manager, city attorney, and staff. And we welcome everybody to our goal-setting special council meeting of the city of Burbank today, Wednesday, January the 27th, 2021. In order to balance the health risks associated with the COVID-19 and the public's right to conduct the people's business in a transparent and open manner during the current state of emergency, and with the interest of public health and safety, council members will be participating in an online city council meeting. The public will not be able to physically attend today's meeting. In lieu of in-person attendance, the city is providing alternatives for viewing and participating in city council meetings. Will everybody please stand and rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam City Clerk.
Good afternoon.
I am not used to seeing you a couple hours later at another meeting this quick, but
It's always nice to see you.
it's great to see you. May you please call the roll call?
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Anthony?
I am chilly, but I am present.
Thank you. Councilmember Schultz?
Present.
Councilmember Springer?
Here.
Vice Mayor Talamantes?
Present.
Mayor Frutos?
Happy to be here. You
Thank
can
you.
demote me, it's okay. There's only going to be one period of public comment today on the agendized items only. If you would like to participate, please call now at 818-238-3335. Callers will be placed in queue until we begin public comment. Mr. City Manager, do you have any comments before we begin, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I do want to say just a few words before we begin. First, it has been quite the year since we had our last year's goal-setting session. Who would have thought we would be 11 months into a global pandemic? With that said, I want to thank the city organization and all of our city employees for rising up and continuing to provide essential services throughout this past year and still accomplishing several items related to council goals from this past year. I know Mr. Prescott will recap several of the accomplishments later on in one of his presentations. I want to thank the council for their leadership, support, and steady direction through this challenging time. I also would like to acknowledge the community for hanging in there, being strong, and for everything they have done to be safe and help their fellow residents. So staff looks forward to today's goal-setting session. Burbank is a great city that prides itself in thinking and planning ahead. Today, we want council to be forward thinkers and think of how we can make Burbank an even better place in the future. Our facilitators have a great goal-setting session planned for you today. And just as important as determining your goals today, we are looking for council to approve our How We Work Together document, as well as our expectations document. With this new council having 2 new members, it is important that we recommit to our goals, norms, and protocols laid out in these documents. This is important because it helps us to be an effective team and at the same time, make sure that we remain civil, respectful, and professional in how we handle the city's business. We certainly serve as an example to others, including our boards and commissions, as well as the community. With that, all the departments are looking on, and we will be looking forward to the next couple of hours. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager, for those words, and let's move on. Now is the time for public comment on the agendized items only. If you would like to participate, please call in now at 818-238-3335. Again, if you wish to call in, now is the time, 818-238-3335. Please remember to lower the volume on your TV or computer and take your phone off speaker. When you deliver public comment, comments are limited to 3 minutes. We ask that your patience in waiting, as we want to finish up with the caller ahead of you, and we're only taking one caller at a time, and then we move the next one forward. So again, we encourage you to participate. Please call now, 818-238-3335. Madam City Clerk, do we have any callers on the line for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 callers right now.
Beam
so
them
we'll
in.
put him through.
Beam them in, Scotty.
Sorry, I'll take.
Our first caller is Alex Arciniega. Alex, you're live with council.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Happy to talk to you guys today. Hello, Mayor. Hello, council members. I just would like for you guys to use the special session to prioritize green initiatives in our greenhouse gas reduction plans. The community garden has been stalling with the legal paperwork. If you guys can push, I think we're beyond a gentle nudge at this point. We need some key water infiltration sites, water capture sites, gray water guidelines for residents, revisit the turf removal. So that's my one big ask. My second one is the SROs. For all the counseling sessions where police are talking to children, the parents should be notified, and everything should be logged by reason, age, date, and when was the parent notification submitted. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for calling in and participating with us. Next caller, Madam City Clerk.
Our next caller is Linda Besson. Linda, you're live with council.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor. Nice to see you again. Thank you, and thank you to council members for this opportunity to speak. On December 8th, City Council adopted a resolution apologizing for Burbank's history and actions as a sundown town and acknowledging Burbank's racist past that was manifested in this and other ways. The resolution included a pledge to, quote, review and assess city policies, procedures, ordinances, values, goals, and missions through an anti-racism lens, close quote. Today, Council is going to conduct an extensive discussion about the important goals for Burbank for the forthcoming year. As this sundown resolution states, and as many of the Council members stated on December 8th, the use of a lens to view the systemic racism in the past, present, and future policies and goals must be a crucial step in this discussion. When you discuss our housing needs, our transit needs, our plans for development and commerce and small businesses and so on, it is important that the Council understand how past thinking created barriers for so many to succeed in Burbank. Diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot be labeled and buzzwords for Council and city staff and others to use and then cast aside without regard for how these concepts can be applied and put into action in order to positively affect people's lives. I ask you today to stand behind the commitment made by City Council on December 8th. Please commit to using an awareness of how systemic racism can affect our community when you set priorities and make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in. Madam City Clerk, any other callers?
One more coming through.
Great, bring them on.
Our next caller is John Baruki. John, you are live with council.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Yes, I wanted to say shame on all of you for yesterday's disastrous meeting. Burbank has one of the highest tax rates in America, and you took our hard-earned tax money and wasted it on foolish things. Taking $100,000 for a total of $200,000 and throwing it away on mask police is insane. Burbank citizens would have used their money more wisely. You didn't even spend it to help Burbank. Imagine how much food or shelter that $200,000 could have bought for struggling families, and you wasted it. Shame on all of you. Then you voted to interfere in private business, to impose prices that a delivery service could charge, when none of you knows anything about that business. Shame on all of you. Your goals should be: number 1, grow new jobs in Burbank. Number 2, keep existing jobs in Burbank. Number 3, stop wasting taxpayer money. Number 4, stop meddling in private business. Number 5, do the minimum to maintain infrastructure. And if you can't or won't do those 5 things, please resign now. Right now, you are doing only harm to the citizens of Burbank with overreach and stupidity. Shame on all of you.
Thank you for calling. Madam City Clerk?
Just give me one moment. I'm getting calls in. Thank you.
Our next caller is Layla Farouzan. Layla, you're live with council.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to quickly just echo the comments from Alex, the first caller, around the SROs, and also encourage a focus on increasing diversity of the police commission, which was something the council looked to the commission for recommendations on, and I feel that was really not addressed in any meaningful way. Second of all, I want to echo the comments from Linda's call, and I would really encourage City Council to take it upon themselves to quickly identify a racial equity and social equity impact assessment tool in order to evaluate new and existing policies and laws in the city. It's one thing to talk about a lens and to take to evaluate, and it can be very vague, and I think that the city really needs to take it upon themselves to review some of these tools that exist. It's not something you need to invent, and adopt one and move forward with that in a consistent way and in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. Any other phone callers?
No, Mr. Mayor, that is it. We don't have any more in queue. Thank you.
There being no further public comment, I now declare the public comment period closed. Council members will not respond today because this is a special meeting. I want to dive into the actual, goal setting. And before we begin, council will now proceed to review the council documents. Make sure you guys have the council documents with you. And we will begin to discuss and prioritize city council goals. At this time, before I invite our Community Development Director, Patrick Prescott, to commence the discussion, being the mayor, and we've got 2 brand new council members that are full of positive energy to add to the goals, I just want to remind all of us that these goals, as we begin to discuss and move forward, is not going into the weeds. These goals are what we envision that gives direction to the city manager of what we want him to do, and this is what we hold him accountable in his performance in the future. So if I respectfully say, Councilmember A, you're getting too much into the weeds, it's because I want to keep us at the level so the city manager knows what our goals are versus getting into the individual weeds. So with that, Thank you, council members, in advance for your patience as we go through this, because I want to hear everybody's input. But just remember, if I say we're getting into the weeds, please understand I'm listening to everything, but keep us focused on the bigger picture here, which are the goals for the direction of the city manager. Now I invite Patrick Prescott to commence the discussion.
Good afternoon, Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamantes, members of the City Council. Very good to see you again this afternoon. I'm going to very briefly review the day's agenda and purpose, which both the mayor and the city manager have briefly touched on. Just a reminder that this is a broad discussion, a discussion about broad goals, right? To guide our work for the next 12 months. The new council members should probably bring some new ideas, and that'll be great to hear as well, and some to ensure ownership of the council goals. We're looking at work we can do this calendar year that will help set up Burbank for long-term success. And after a presentation to provide some context for the discussion, we'll work through two activities, both Betsy and Kevin, to help us think about what makes Burbank great, where we can focus our work to make Burbank even better. So during these activities, we'll be asking you, council, to do some dreaming and then refocus specifically on the best role for council in improving the community. And think about for a moment, what is your most heartfelt wish for Burbank? And how do you distill that into 5 goals? It's not easy, but hopefully by the end of that, we'll get there to 5 goals, 5 or 6 perhaps. So this will be a little more free form than a normal council meeting. And you do not need to share all your thoughts at once. It can be a back and forth, but just let's all be respectful of each other so everyone gets a chance to contribute, right? We may at times cut off discussions so we can move forward and get everyone out of here by 4, but you can, of course, bring up additional thoughts at council meetings or to the city manager if you don't get a chance to share them here. At the end, we aim to have a set of goals to direct council and staff work for the next year, while also helping us continue to be successful in our working relationships. So as mentioned, this will include a review of the documents, city council, how we work together, and city council's expectations of staff. The how and the what together will ensure we have a very successful year, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to hand it off to Kevin Gray now, who will lead you through some thoughts on leadership.
Thank you, Patrick. Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamantes, council members, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Kevin Gray, Chief Information Officer for the City of Burbank. First, I want to thank you for your time and effort today to work with us to identify and set your vision and goals for the City of Burbank in 2021. For me, soon to begin my 3rd year with the city, this is the first council goal setting event that I've participated in and only the 2nd one that I've seen. Before I go much further, I want to recognize Elizabeth Goldman and Chief Eric Garcia for setting the gold standard for me to learn from last year and framing a model for us to follow. Now, with that said, last year, Chief Garcia shared some thoughts on leadership with council. In hindsight, for me, it was so surreal and timely because this happened right before the pandemic befell us. You'll see evidence of how important council's leadership was later today when we discuss accomplishments for the last year. So I'm going to revisit some of the chief's sage words from last year, new for our new council members, and as a refresher for our veteran council members. Then I'm going to build upon that to segue into commentary about how we work together. This is important because your leadership in this time in history is invaluable for this city. Your collective talent, vitality as leaders in our community, diverse experiences, and diverse multi-generational perspectives are going to make this council one of the most impressive, stimulating, and groundbreaking in recent memory. So last year, the chief, in describing major leadership tenets, described 2 models of leadership. The transformational model, where leaders where leaders build a shared vision and mission, putting the organization's interest over their self-interest and working to build trust and influence. And then the servant model, where leaders leaders bring humility and gratitude and find satisfaction in helping others. Leaders need to care. Teddy Roosevelt once said, "They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." Chief Garcia spoke about 4 key behaviors of leadership. 1, be a professional. Be competent and proficient in all facets of your job and skill set. Number 2, to own it. Take ownership of any and everything you put your name to. 3, to walk the talk. Nothing sinks a ship faster than a leader who has a do as I say and not as I do attitude. Number 4, to be caring. Care not only for the community we serve, but for each and every one of our teammates. These 4 behaviors are key and must complement any set of shared and core values that we have. What's most important is that our community always knows their city leadership can be trusted, is compassionate, provides stability, and gives them hope. These are wise and astute words from our fire chief, and I thank him again for the insight that he shared with us last year. Now, this is where I stop parroting Chief Garcia and share some of my own story and wisdom about leadership. In 2006, I was part of a leadership group that went from DreamWorks Animation to Paramount Pictures to assume executive leadership positions as a part of the Paramount acquisition of DreamWorks Studios. Taking on this new role as an executive leader was a big accomplishment for me and a huge step forward in my career, as I went from managing a team of 13 technologists to managing a team of over 200 technologists. Plus, I then suddenly had the title of an executive, VP, Vice President. But my first several months on the job were an abject failure. I was crashing and burning as an executive leader because I was trying to manage a team of over 200 technologists rather than lead the team. And I was trying to do it in an environment unlike any I had ever tried to be a leader in before. I was violating every one of what leadership author John C. Maxwell calls the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. My tactical approach to a strategic role was failing, and I needed to change. I was trying to micromanage a group of professionals when I needed to be setting a vision and developing and leading a strategy to support the mission and strategy of my company. Thankfully, my story doesn't end there. I did change. I did turn it around completely with the help of an executive coach, some great reading, and some deep soul searching and reevaluation of what leadership really means. So today, I'm not going to discuss all 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, but I am going to touch on 6 that I believe are particularly relevant in this historical time and germane to the message that I'm trying to get across. First is the law of timing. When to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. John C. Maxwell discusses the example of New Orleans in late August, early September 2005. New Orleans, it's an unusual city. Like Venice, Italy, it's surrounded by water. To the north lies Lake Pontchartrain. To the south flows the mighty Mississippi River. To the east and west are low-lying swamplands. Canals crisscross the city. You can't drive in or out of New Orleans without crossing a major bridge. Most of the city lies below sea level. New Orleans is really shaped like a big giant bowl. So I'm guessing that we can all imagine how and remember the disaster that struck by the name of Hurricane Katrina in August of 2005. What we all may not remember are some specifics. For example, on a Friday, the National Hurricane Center predicted that the storm would reach landfall on Monday, somewhere between Burris, Louisiana, about 60 miles southeast of New Orleans. The hurricane was already looking like a bad one. The next morning, Saturday, August 27th, the leaders of many of Louisiana's parishes around the New Orleans area ordered mandatory evacuations. St. Charles, Plaquemines, parts of Jefferson, even St. Tammany, which is situated on higher ground than New Orleans. But Mayor Ray Nagin did not order an evacuation. John C. Maxwell argues that Ray Nagin didn't understand the law of timing. When to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. Well, the history has now been written. We all remember the harrowing images of the Superdome and the massive death and destruction in the aftermath. The time to move people out of New Orleans was when the other parish leaders announced their mandatory evacuations. Nagin didn't do it. We lived through a perilous year with the pandemic. It's forced us to pivot and adapt at every turn. Council's leadership to help us navigate through it has been invaluable. Now we find ourselves at another crucial time as we begin to claw our way out of the pandemic. Now the council is needed even more than ever. Now is the time for council to set our collective vision, to show us where to go so that together we can get there. The second law is the law of addition. Leaders add value by serving others. This harkens back to the servant mode that Chief Garcia spoke of last year. In 1921, Albert Einstein, Nobel Prize winner for physics, asserted, "Only a life lived in the service of others is worth living." Well, that's a little extreme for me, Mr. Einstein, but I get it. John C. Maxwell tells the story of Jim Sinegal, co-founder and former CEO of Costco. We have our very own Costco here in Burbank, and our very own assistant city manager's father knew Jim personally. So Jim's story speaks to me. Jim worked as an unremarkable office comprised primarily of folding tables and chairs. He always met his guests in the lobby. He took a salary that was in the bottom 10% of CEOs of large corporations, while at the time of Maxwell's book, Costco employees were paid an average of 42% more than Costco's chief rival. Once Sinegal flew from Texas to San Francisco when he heard that a Costco executive was hospitalized for emergency surgery. For me, his story represents the epitome of humility. These words from Sinegal stick with me. It's improper for one person to take credit when it takes so many people to build a successful organization. The third law is the Big Mo, law of the Big Mo. Momentum is a leader's best friend. Personally, I love the power of momentum. I see it in so many aspects of life. I love to watch the Lakers go on a 10-0 run. I personally will never forget the Lakers coming back from 13 points down in Game 7 of the 2000 Western Conference Finals, and the iconic Kobe Bryant crossover and alley-oop to Shaq to cap it off. Maxwell tells the story of Ed Catmull, a wannabe animator who couldn't draw very well. Catmull instead became a computer scientist, earning a PhD. He later discovered as a computer scientist that he could draw with the aid of a computer. That rekindled his dream to make movies. He was later hired by George Lucas, and he ran a division for Lucasfilm that produced incredible work like the Genesis sequence in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. However, the division was not a commercial success. So Lucas sold it to Steve Jobs, who called his new company Pixar. Pixar struggled for a long time, only making short films like Luxo Jr., the animated desk lamps interacting as parent and child, and the Listerine commercial with the boxing bottle of Listerine. Some of you guys might remember that commercial. But these small wins began to develop momentum for the small company, leading to Disney offering them a contract to create 3 full-length feature films in 1991. While other companies were using Catmull's software to make movies like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, the world wasn't yet seeing the momentum that Pixar was building. Then, in 1995, Toy Story opened. 45 patents, 16 Oscars, and now part of the bedrock of Disney Studios. We can see what can become of momentum when it's maintained. Again, Council, when we go through the accomplishments of the pandemic-ridden year of 2020, you'll see that the city of Burbank has momentum, built upon the vision and goals of last year's council. Your vision and leadership will help us maintain that momentum through 2021. The fourth law is the law of empowerment. Only secure leaders give power to others. Maxwell tells the story of Henry Ford, the revolutionary automobile industry innovator and legend in American business history. He founded Ford Motor Company in 1903 and realized his vision of building a motor car that was within the reach of the average American worker. By 1914, Ford was producing nearly 50% of all automobiles in the United States. But Henry was the antithesis of an empowering leader. He continually undermined his leaders and looked over their shoulders. For nearly 20 years, all Ford made was the Model T. He didn't accept new ideas and didn't empower his people. After the peak of 1914, Ford lost market share steadily down to 28% by 1931. It didn't begin to turn around until Henry's grandson, Henry II, and Henry's wife convinced him to step down with the backing of the board of directors. The board of directors made the right decision, and they empowered Henry II to do what he needed to do to turn the company around. Henry II brought in new leadership, and he empowered them. A colonel from the War Department of World War II and an experienced GM executive. Henry hired them with the expectation that they would take command and turn the company around, and they did. By 1949, Ford sold more than 1 million Fords, Mercurys, and Lincolns. However, young Henry felt threatened about his own position with the company, and he blew it all up again by pitting his people against one another. Another Teddy Roosevelt quote is, "The best executive is the one who has the sense enough to hire good men to do what he wants to do, and the self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it." Aside from the fact that Teddy left out half of our population, I think that those are sage words. Council, you are our board of directors. Justin Hess is our CEO. I encourage us, you all, Justin, and all of my peers to continue to embrace the law of empowerment. It's our best means towards maintaining the Big Mo. The fifth law, the law of navigation. Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. In the interest of time and me getting tired of hearing myself speak, I'm not going to tell the story of two groups of explorers who set off to reach the South Pole in 1911, one with a course charted and the other one not. You could probably guess who made it there first, right? Your role, Council, as our board of directors, is to chart the course. Staff's role is to steer the ship. The law of navigation is my favorite law of the 21 because realizing it is complex. It's esoteric. Metaphorically speaking, the waters, the hills, the valleys, the mountains we must navigate are never the same. We find ourselves today facing a political, economic, and public health landscape that I haven't seen in my lifetime. The course that you chart for us here today is where we as staff will steer the city, and your continued guidance and vision will help us get there. Now, lastly, the sixth law is the law of legacy. A leader's lasting value is measured by succession. There is often a natural progression to how leaders develop in the area of legacy, starting with the desire to achieve. Achievement comes when you do big things by yourself. Success comes when a leader empowers his followers or her followers to do big things for them. Significance comes when they develop leaders to do great things with them. And legacy comes when they put leaders in a position to do great things without them. In short, a legacy is created only when a person puts his or her organization into the position to do great things without them. One example that sits in my mind is the legacy of John F. Kennedy. He was taken from us too soon in November of 1963, before I was born. Yet there are so many incredible aspects to the legacy he left. I remember seeing JFK portraits alongside Martin Luther King Jr.'s portraits in many of the African-American households I visited as a young child. So clearly he left an incredible legacy in civil rights that was fulfilled without him. But there is another legacy that I'm thinking of today. One that was born in his 1962 address at Rice University on the nation's space effort. The address is commonly referred to as "We choose to go to the moon." JFK said, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win." You see, Council, JFK charted a course that day that culminated in the successful moon landing of Apollo 11 in 1969. By then, I was alive to see it. JFK didn't steer that ship. He didn't manage the Saturn rocket test or do the research that led to the successful execution of the Apollo missions. He didn't do math calculations that enabled us to send astronauts into space. Actually, I believe that was Taraji P. Henson and Octavia Spencer, if my memory serves me right. Anyway, he didn't build the launch systems that carried Neil Armstrong and his crew to the moon, but he had the vision and he charted the course. Others realized that vision for him. As staff, we will work tirelessly for you to realize your collective vision. Now, with that said, I want to segue to talk a little bit about how we work together. I hope that you have all had an opportunity to read through the How We Work Together document. There's just a few things that I want to highlight from that document. Number one, overall, our overall goal is, please remember, we are each working for the good of the community, all of us. Number two, keep focus. Number three, always demonstrate respect. Don't make it personal, it's never personal. Next, you can disagree on an issue without becoming divided as a group. And at meetings, share your thoughts, concerns, and feelings so a rich discussion can occur. And at meetings, share what you have learned through other meetings, readings, and committee attendance, both for informational and transparency. Now, with all of that, I would like to invite Ms. Betsy McClinton to discuss our next section.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Good afternoon, Mayor Frutos, Vice Mayor Talamantes, and members of the council. Betsy McClinton with the Management Services Department. I am so pleased and honored to be part of the council's goal setting for 2021. Mr. Gray spoke earlier of leadership by highlighting 6 irrefutable laws of leadership. He also touched on how council works with each other to be effective in their role as city leaders. For my portion of the presentation, I want to discuss 2 items. First, I want to talk about how Mr. Gray's 6 irrefutable laws of leadership apply to the council's work. And second, I want to talk about the role staff plays and what council can expect from us as we work together. So, in order to make Mr. Gray's 6 irrefutable laws of leadership tangible for the council in the context of our city government, I want to answer this question. How does the council actually put the 6 irrefutable laws of leadership into practice? So the answer, of course, is rooted in the council's role in our council manager form of government. In the council manager form of government, the city council members collectively are the visionaries for the city. Informed by your collective values, which you will have an opportunity to identify and explore later in today's program, you have the great task of setting the city's aspirations. What does the city want to be? What is the ideal Burbank? What does a Burbank city government that represents all constituents look like? How does Burbank city government build a community in which everyone thrives? These are the big questions council is tasked with in our council manager form of government. Really, at its core, the council's role is to set the policy and overall direction of the city government. So this is how the council's policy setting city leadership role might look like when you think about it in terms of the 6 irrefutable laws of leadership. So number one, it means the council as policymakers collectively determine when the time is right to pursue a particular policy direction for the community. Number two, as the elected policymakers, you serve others by representing the entire community and working solely in their best interest. Number three, you use the momentum of each successive set of successfully completed annual goals to move the city closer and closer to that aspirational vision of Burbank that the council collectively creates. Four, you recognize that your collective focus is on making policy, and that part of your responsibility is to empower your city manager to do their job, which is to carry out the council's policy and to run the day-to-day operations of the city. Five, you collectively chart the course the city will follow and allow the city manager to do the work to steer the ship so that Burbank can get to where you've determined we should go. And finally, by setting the policy vision for the city and empowering the city manager to implement that vision, the council collectively will leave a legacy of a city government poised to continue to do great things long after this particular council's work is done. So these are the ways that in which the 6 irrefutable laws of leadership come to life in the council's work as policymakers. City staff and the entire community look to you to fill this visionary role. Now, the council's role as policymakers is certainly one part of the council manager form of government. The city manager, of course, is the other part. The city manager's role is to implement the council's policy and run the day-to-day operations. Included in your packet is a document entitled Expectations of Staff. This document sets forth what council expects from the city manager in their role of implementing the council's policy direction, and indeed what the council expects from all staff. The council has a long practice of reviewing and adopting this document as part of its annual goal setting in order to set a positive tone for council staff interactions over the next year. To highlight a few key items from this document, staff understands that the council expects staff to, 1, communicate effectively in a non-bureaucratic way, providing comprehensive information, pros and cons, and encouraging an open dialogue. Number 2, provide objective and professional analysis, as well as clear and candid recommendations. Number 3, enthusiastically and faithfully implement council's direction, even when the direction is different than staff's recommendation. 4, keep council well informed so as to avoid surprises, provide the same information to all council members to avoid the appearance of favoritism, and to take direction from the council as a body, not from individual council members. And finally, the city manager, city attorney, and executive team will be available and responsive to all council members. So the council in the past, as part of the Expectations of Staff document, have confirmed their commitment to work in a productive and respectful manner with staff. This is the second portion of the Expectations of Staff document. I want to again highlight a few items that are particularly important to staff, as I'm sure the council can understand. Number 1, the council will focus on the goals you established today and understand that staff resources are limited. Work on today's goals will take priority over additional requests that council makes. This item is critical to staff, as we know that we cannot be effective when we are pulled in various directions that are not part of the council's collectively established priorities. Number 2, the council will work with the city manager, city attorney, and executive staff rather than rank and file employees, recognizing that the city manager and the city attorney work for the council and the rest of the city's employees work for the manager and the attorney. Number 3, council members will not suggest direction to staff as an individual council member, understanding that staff must take direction from the council as a whole during a council meeting. And finally, council will be, as we like to say, hard on the issue, not the person. Council will treat staff speaking at meetings with courtesy and respect and recognize that the professional opinion offered by staff should not be personalized. So I just want to thank the council again for the opportunity to talk about the roles of both the council and staff, and for reviewing the document containing council's expectations of staff. I'm very confident that the council and staff will continue to work closely and effectively together to make progress towards the council's collective vision for the city. So the council will have an opportunity to suggest revisions and adopt the document entitled Expectations of Staff at the end of today's goal setting. So at this point, I'd like to turn the goal setting over to Patrick Prescott to give some thoughts on what the city accomplished during the last year, as well as some thoughts regarding the work ahead of the city for the next year. Patrick?
Hi, thank you, Betsy. Hello again, Council. Last year, the Council's 2020 goals fell into 6 categories: housing, traffic and transportation, quality of life, city services, planning and sustainability. There were many successes in the past year, in spite of the challenges, and the challenges beginning literally the day after Council adopted these goals, when the stay-at-home orders began. I would like to highlight some of the wins and successes within these categories that the Council adopted. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are your wins, Council. I hope you will see in these accomplishments how your particular want or ask fits within what at first might seem like a limited list of goals. So while you may not see a specific initiative you wish to pursue, you might see under which category that your ask might fall. And when you have adopted your new goals, you will be able to refer back to them, as staff will throughout the year, to ensure we are all staying focused on the goals you establish here this afternoon. The first council goal was housing. Many residential units are in various stages of review that will get closer to council's 12,000 unit goal. Phase 1 construction of First Street Village, 777 Front Street, the Laterra project, are underway. The city issued $850,000 in community development block grant residential and business forgivable loans. We maintained and increased the city's homeless services, Operation Room Key, hygiene stations, and strengthened collaborations among city departments and Street Plus to house and shelter numerous people. Under traffic and transportation, Public Works completed the Leland Streetscape project that included making the street one-way and includes a bicycle cycle track and some pretty lovely landscaping. Public Works also completed many traffic safety enhancements, including the installation of stop signs at 37 intersections as a traffic safety enhancement measure to improve pedestrian and vehicular safety. Installed curve warning signs and centerline striping at 50 locations to improve vehicular safety and maneuverability. Burbank Channel Bikeway was completed. This one also fits well under planning and sustainability goal as well, so you get a twofer with this accomplishment. Public Works also installed numerous traffic safety enhancements throughout the city. Some things simple as making automatic PED crosswalks without having to press the button to request them. We've since eased back on that, and mostly that exists in downtown, but it's just an example of reacting to the need. Under the goal of quality of life, BWP initiated the COVID-19 job loss credit program to assist ratepayers struggling with job losses. Park and Recreation and BWP launched a program to plant 500 new trees in the city in 2021. Citywide, we engaged in extensive homeless assistance efforts, including many encampment cleanups. This involved all departments at some level, responding to the council request to provide these services. The city completed successful multi-department effort to address quality of life issues in the Starlight Estates neighborhood. You may recall, council, you directed staff to initiate that, and then very quickly, once we saw the success, council made it permanent. Park and Recreation Department partnered with community organizations for food distribution to those hit hard by the COVID-19 shutdowns. Burbank Fire Department was a front runner in initiating all the necessary COVID-19 best practices and safeguards, PPE supply chain, quarantine plan, exposure policy, and access to testing to ensure that our firefighters were safe while providing the ongoing services and care for our community during the pandemic. Despite the hurdles that COVID-19 presented, Burbank Police Department successfully developed ways to stay engaged with the community. For example, Burbank Police Department increased the number of followers on social media platforms by 15% the department also developed a reverse trick-or-treat event to kind of build community and improve quality of life. Incredibly, the Burbank Police Department recorded a crime reduction during 2020. The less serious felonies declined by Part 1 crimes, which are generally serious felonies, declined 7.2% year over year. And Part 2 crimes, the less serious misdemeanors, fell 19.9% last year. That can partly be attributed to the department's crime reduction strategies, which include community participation. Under the category, the council goal of city services, all city departments quickly adapted last year to maintain continuity of operations to serve the community. Besides that, however, there were many non-pandemic related successes as well, and I'll touch on those here quickly. Library Services opened the Spark Digital Media Lab to provide access to learning and workforce development training for future entertainment sector employees. The library also expanded the Be Connected Student ID library card partnership with Burbank Unified School District to all 15,000 students in all grades, improving student access to all the services and resources that our library provides. Our IT department stepped up and initiated significant upgrades to our ability to work remotely and serve our customers online, including meetings like this one. We know how important it is to the City Council that our community have access to our services, and so IT's work in this regard is very valuable. Over the past year, the Park and Rec Department served 98,000 meals through the Senior Nutrition Program. And the Senior Nutrition Program's operations dramatically shifted from congregate meal sites and home delivered meals due to LA County orders. As soon as they were allowed, the Parks and Recreation Department began providing day camp and childcare services as well. Burbank Fire Department, in order to maintain city services, completed 2 recruit academies during 2021 and prepared for a 3rd to commence in early 2021. The Burbank Police Department is again distinguished itself in 2020 by responding immediately to calls for service. Priority 1 calls, which generally include all serious crimes in progress as well as other emergencies, averaged 3 minutes and 5 seconds. The average response time to all calls for service was 14 minutes and 28 seconds, and this is really a remarkable achievement. We could also include planning and sustainability. This is a really interesting one. Definitely a sustainability win for BWP. By repowering the landfill with micro turbines that are generating renewable energy for the city of Burbank. I want to make sure I explain it clearly. I'm not very technically, yes. So what they do is they take the gas that naturally forms from the landfill and they use it to power micro turbines. So by the end of 2020, the micro turbines produced 3,500 megawatts of electricity. In addition to the benefits of being renewable, the project also provides local generation of energy and reduces the city's reliance on electricity imports. Under planning goal, CDD staff initiated several significant long-range planning projects, including the Downtown Transit-Oriented Development Specific Plan, an update to the city's housing element, the Golden State Specific Plan, and initiated an update to the city's Climate Action Plan. All of those things the council will be looking at this year. In 2020, council also adopted the citywide Complete Streets Plan. We begin to see that implemented in some of our larger development projects approved by the council. Under sustainability, Burbank Water and Power partnered with the City of Los Angeles to treat their groundwater at our treatment plant and return it back to them for their use. This partnership reduces and removes contaminated groundwater underneath Los Angeles to build a sustainable future and share in the environmental stewardship of the entire region. Besides all these successes implementing council goals, the council took action in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and adopted an economic recovery plan. Very quickly, I might add, which has guided our economic and development and recovery efforts these past 9 months or so, now 11, I guess. Eviction moratorium, grants to small businesses and rental assistance paid to landlords, San Fernando Boulevard downtown closure and reopening, curbside pickup and outdoor dining program, signage and city facility retrofits done by Public Works that allow the community in person to return in person safely, The management services team took on new and unexpected role of developing all the numerous new policies related to working from home, wearing your mask, social distancing, where people should be seated to be safe, and when we can open the buildings to the public. Financial services had the unenviable position of delivering some bad news, but also some good news, given the city's traditionally conservative fiscal policies and the council's adopted policies. Everyone shifted. IT, PIO, and the city clerk's office shifted to make these online meetings so successful and almost seamless immediately. So you can see, council, that last year when you sat down, when the council voted on their goals, they didn't say we want a citywide complete street plan, and that was a goal to have that adopted. But it was we want to do good planning, and we want to focus on sustainability. And so the complete streets plan, as an example, would fall under that category. So the next year or two will likely be heavily focused on post-pandemic recovery efforts. So it's likely some of your goals will at least partly reflect that. And Kevin Gray is now going to lead you in a values exercise as the next part of our meeting today. Kevin?
Thank you, Patrick. Council, can you hear me? Great.
Yes.
All righty. So we're going to now move into a values exercise. There are so many different needs and opportunities calling for your attention as council members. Amid all of the issues clamoring for your attention, it can be helpful to keep in mind why you decided to run for elected office. What motivates you as you do your work, and what values you try to keep in, what values you try to keep in mind as an individual while considering the actions to take on behalf of the city. We asked earlier that you think about this in advance, to come up with 5 phrases or sentences that express those values. These are not the official collective values of the council. Each value you put forward is meant in this context to serve as a personal reminder to you of why you're here. You have noted these in advance. You may want to make adjustments based on things you've heard today or things that have been discussed previously. But what I'm going to do right now is check with each of you. And Ms. McClinton will record your values on the online collaboration board that we're about to bring up, the workspace we're about to bring up, where we can see them as we complete the rest of our work today. So first I want to call on Councilmember Schultz.
Yes, sir. All right. So my 5 are, first and foremost, and these are all phrases, about 2 or 3 words: accessibility and responsibility. And Mr. Gray, would it be appropriate would you like me to elaborate on that or just say the phrases?
Well, we're going to type the phrases, but if you want to elaborate,
okay.
I think that's fine.
I'll keep it brief. What I mean by accessibility and responsibility is maintaining a close relationship with our constituents and understanding that every action we take needs to be in the best interest of all of Burbank. My second phrase is accountability and transparency. In everything that we do, being honest, forthright, and being fully transparent about every decision we make and why we make it. My third phrase, sorry, I don't want to go too quick. My third phrase is unity and collaboration. Keeping an open mind to differences of opinion and working towards a common goal, knowing that my colleagues will check my blind spots and we'll reach the best decision together. Number 4 is compassion and understanding, especially right now when we're dealing with so many residents and businesses that are hurting, listening to their needs and working to find solutions. And lastly, stewardship and vision. And I think that goes to what you were all talking about. Thank you, staff. Not thinking about just our immediate needs today, but what Burbank needs for the next decade, the next 2 decades, the next 3 decades, and what's going to be best for Burbank 50 years from now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Schultz. Councilmember Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I appreciate all of the presentation and Ms. McClinton and everything that's been said so far. So building on what Nick had said, my 5, the first one is honesty and transparency, which is a little bit different than he had, but I think it's more about presenting all of the facts, not just to the public, but when we have discussions with city staff and with each other, putting all the cards on the table so that we can all move forward and we all know what page we're all on. Secondly, helpfulness. Everything we should do, we should think about who it helps. Third, fairness and equity. Fourth, embracing new opportunities. Sorry, third one is fairness and equity.
We got it.
Oh, okay. Fourth, embracing new opportunities. And then fifth, building on best practices.
Great. Thank you, Council Member Anthony. Council Member Springer.
Number 1, extend opportunity and allow people to thrive for mutual success and well-being emotionally and financially. 2, truthfulness, honesty, integrity, and responsibility. 3, respect for others. And
Councilmember Springer, I'm going to ask you to slow down because we're struggling to keep up with you. So could you go back to number 1 for me really quick?
Sure. Extend opportunity and allow people, our residents, to thrive, to thrive for mutual success and well-being emotionally and financially.
Gotcha.
2, truthfulness, honesty, integrity, and responsibility.
Bear with us a second. Integrity also there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next.
3, respect for others and the environment.
Thank you. Next.
4 is equality.
Wonderful.
And 5 is accessibility to me and to all of us and to city government.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Next, Vice Mayor Talamantes.
Here I am. Thank you for that. And a lot of food for thought was shared early on with yourself and everybody that presented.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I didn't bore you to death.
No, it was excellent. I like your stories, and I want to hear the rest of that story that you did share with us.
Okay.
But anyway, so my 5 things are, the first one is willingness to listen. Next one would be transparent and forthright. The next one is communicate and be responsive.
Okay.
Be accessible and accountable. And the last one is teamwork and understanding.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mayor Frutos?
Yes, Mr. Gray, go Raiders.
Go Raiders, go Rams.
Okay, here are my values, and this is what motivates me every day. Most important, integrity in all I say and do. Second, especially as a council member, is quality to continuous improvement, being always on my A game. 3, accessibility to all members of our community. Number 4, reverence for the law, codes, policies. As I have learned with my tenure on the council, is that it's always dynamic on bills and laws that come out of Sacramento, and how I have to be flexible and adaptive to lead our city as we go forward. And number 5, treat community members and city staff as I would like them to treat a member of my family. Those are my 5.
So thank you very much, council members. This is wonderful. If I seem a little dry, I'm trying to practice this empathetic interviewing thing where I'm not guiding you guys. Not that I could anyway, but. So next, I think I'm going to ask you to join me on a journey, sort of a thought exercise, if you will. The purpose of this activity is to help you expand your thoughts beyond whatever news you woke up to or whatever topic has been weighing on you. We're all prone to focus on whatever came to our attention most recently, but in trying to set goals for the next year, we want to expand our minds beyond that. So we're going to start really big and get ourselves into a positive frame of mind, which I believe you all already are. So are you ready to do a little dreaming with me? All righty. So imagine you're at an event making a pitch for residents or businesses to move to Burbank. In your eyes, in your mind, please imagine the absolute ideal of Burbank, which will overlap but may not be exactly what we have now today. What do you describe as the best attributes of the community? Why do you choose to highlight those? That is, why do these attributes matter? I'll give you an example. And I'd say the attribute is Burbank has a small town feel. And it matters because people feel welcome and safe here. I'm going to give you a few minutes, jot down some notes. Please jot down your answers on the worksheet that you have. We'll come back to discuss them in just a second. So I'm trying to read body language here. Are Councilmember Schultz and Councilmember Anthony, are you guys still thinking, working, or you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So now I'll work through with you guys. I'll ask you all to share your thoughts, and Ms. McClinton will record them. I'm gonna take the same order that I did last time. So starting with Councilmember Schultz.
Thank you. So in describing the ideal Burbank to me, the first thing that comes to mind is our creativity and our industriousness. And specifically, I think about the strong and vibrant small business corridor where new ideas and solutions have a chance to really be born and meet our challenges of today. I also think second about investments in our future. And I really think about our kids, investments in our kids, strong public schools that attract so many people to call Burbank home, where they have the resources and the tools to really make anything of themselves. And there's just opportunities here you can't find anywhere else in the world. Number three, community spirit. That sense of neighborliness and togetherness, the sense that you can go out to the shopping mall or grab groceries or have dinner and you run into people that you know. It's just that sense of being in it together that's really unrivaled for me. Four, I would say access and preservation of our environment. We have a tremendous history of investments in our parks and open spaces, and I think we need to continue and build upon that legacy. And finally, again, in describing the ideal Burbank for me, I view it as affordable and inclusive, where there's a bed for every head in Burbank, where people can afford to live and work here, and where everybody is welcome and every new idea is embraced. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Schultz. Councilmember Anthony.
Okay, so I am looking at the screen and I see 5 boxes, and I didn't realize that 2 minutes ago, so I only have 2. The first being diversity, and that's all kinds of diversity: cultural diversity, economic diversity, racial and religious diversity. So I think diversity is easily one of the best attributes in our community. And then secondly, connectedness. And that means a lot of things here in the city. You know, we're at 17 square miles, there's over 100,000 residents, but we're really connected. People talk to their neighbors, people shop local, people are online and talking to each other. They read the local newspaper and the local feed, and they watch the local, our council member presentations. So there's a lot of connectedness in the city. And so looking at our diversity and looking at our connectedness, I find that those are the 2 best attributes, because I believe the solutions to our problems can be found if we just look to our community members to solve them, from our public input to our boards and commissions, hiring practices. As long as we keep an open mind, that connectedness and that diversity of backgrounds and thought is going to really help us propel the city forward.
Cool. Thank you, Councilmember Anthony. Councilmember Springer.
I wrote a sentence, so you can pick these out, or I can stop.
We'll try to catch it.
Okay, Burbank is a small, inclusive city with a strong sense of community, where each and every person has access to opportunity, they have what they need, and they feel safe, equal, protected, and valued.
Cool. I believe that sentence incorporates quite a few values. Yeah.
I think there are 5 there.
Yeah, I think so. All right, we're gonna go with it as it is, and when we rearrange things, maybe we'll break it up a little bit for you.
I can do it for you now if you want.
No. In the interest of time, because we have a break a little later.
Okay.
Thank you. So let's see, Vice Mayor Talamantes.
Yes, sir. I've got like 6 or 7 paragraphs. No, I'm just kidding. Let's start out with number 1. A full-service city with a small town feel with large city amenities. And next one would be safe, clean, and extremely responsive to its residents and businesses. Next one would be excellent city services and city employees. And the last one would be excellent school system.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vice Mayor Talamantes, and on behalf of all of the city employees, thank you for the kudos.
Well, that's one of the things that for years, not just recently, but for many years, residents, I've spoken to residents when I was in the fire department, and they say they come to Burbank because of the city services and the school district. Bottom line.
Yep, great. Thank you. Mayor Frutos?
So my answers will be a little bit more deeper from my heart because I agree with everything so far that my colleagues have said. So I just going to dive from my heart. What to me describes the best attributes of this community, and I'll just dive into neighbor helping neighbor, neighbor caring. And an example was, it was reported in the Leader that one of our coffee shops on Magnolia Park got burglarized. And I went there in person and spoke to the folks working there. And obviously I read the story in the Leader. But in Burbank, you had residents come out, neighbors, to show compassion, especially in this COVID-19, and help the shop owner clean up. Out of their own money, they boarded up the storefront window and they contributed out of their pocket cash money to help out a small business owner. That makes me so proud, not as the mayor, but also as a private citizen of no matter what is happening right now, politically, emotionally, this to me is why I'm so proud to be the mayor of Burbank and so proud to live here with my wife of Burbank. That to me is so unique. Neighbors caring and showing pride, and I just melt with that. Two, why did I choose those attributes and why do they mean so much to me? Is because I want to be part of a city that I know my neighbors by first name. I can go to Ralph's on a Saturday morning embarrassing my wife because I'm wearing my dirty shorts and my dirty t-shirt, and she says, "Bob, you're on the city council, you should look a little more clean." I says, "No, I'm a regular Joe that was blessed and empowered by the people to protect their city, to work on their issues of quality of life." And when residents can come up to a council member and say hi to me and feel comfortable to share a cup of coffee there when we used to be able to sit out in front and talk about important issues on a Saturday morning, that is community. That is hometown. That's what I really love about this city. And that's what drove me to invest my hard-earned money throughout my career as a Los Angeles police officer to invest in the city of Burbank, to buy a home in the city of Burbank. And to know that one of our neighbors a couple years ago, I won't say her name and embarrass her, but she was on Good Morning America. And the city of Burbank had the best neighborhood in the contest nationwide. That was generated by a neighbor, a person who's very proud. And then there's a neighborhood that does every year a Christmas block party for the neighbors. They get a neighbor that dresses up as Santa. All the neighbors call each other that has kids, and they give their presents. In a small town like Burbank, the fire department rolls up in the big shiny red truck. The Burbank Police Department comes by in a black and white and brings the canine out. And it's community, it's harmony, it's people coming together. This is our hometown. And then on the bigger side, it is so cool to know that Disney is located here, that KFI is here in Burbank. I mean, we used to have Power 106 and disco nights on Saturday nights, and knowing that it's here in Burbank. We have Mr. Potato Head here in Burbank. We've got our own airport, our golf courses. We are a great self-contained city that literally, outside of the pandemic and outside of the political fallout that's been going on, regardless of what party, but as people, we can still come together and show compassion and kindness and help out a small coffee shop. That, to me, is what I love about our town. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. I hope I don't lose our millennial council members with this joke, but your second aspiration there makes me think of Burbank as being the Cheers of LA County, maybe? Everybody knows your name?
That's what I'm talking about. They know about Frutos in a suit or in dirty t-shirt and shorts. They know who I am. And I love it by first name.
Wonderful. Okay, so at this point, council members, I think I'm going to ask Betsy. By the way, Betsy, thank you. You're doing a wonderful job keeping up on that mural board. I'm glad it wasn't me because I'd still be on council members Schultz's first aspiration at this point. All right, so I'm going to ask Betsy to come back and we'll start on the goal setting process.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. So I'm really excited to get to the actual goal setting portion of today's meeting. I think our hope is that you will use the values exercise and the aspirations exercise to really help you focus on what the priorities are going to be for next year. With our goal setting, we're not looking for specific activities. What we're really looking for are general, overarching, broad areas of focus. We want the council to think broadly. Based on the priorities that the council adopts at the end of today's activities, staff will identify actionable objectives and tasks to achieve those goals. And we will bring those plans, those work activities back to the council as part of your agendas in the future. So staff provided the council with a goals worksheet prior to the meeting. And what we asked you to do is to list up to 10 priority areas for next year. We're asking you to include enough detail to make it understandable, but again, we're not looking for a detailed plan. So a good example might be if you say housing, that might be too broad. But if you say, I want such and such of a housing project on this particular street with this number of affordable units, that's probably a work plan, and that's not necessarily what we're looking for. A good middle ground might be more affordable housing, right? Detailed enough so that we know what you want, what you're looking for, but not an actual plan. So does the council need a little bit of time to complete your worksheets, or did everybody come prepared with your 10 goals? I'll just look for nods. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head and share my screen again. And we'll move over to the goals worksheet portion. And please, if you can't read what I'm writing, by all means, just speak up. I can zoom in a little bit as we go through these. Okay, so to keep the process moving, you don't need to detail or justify your choices. All we're trying to do right now is to simply get them onto our virtual piece of paper that we have here. So I'll go in the same order that Mr. Gray was going in, and I'll start with Councilmember Schultz.
Okay, and just for your benefit, I'm tried to narrow everything down to just a couple words, a phrase, but I might add just a couple bullet points so that my colleagues understand what I'm emphasizing. So
sounds good.
With that, the first one for me is economic development and recovery. That's growing and retaining small businesses, considering urgency orders to protect our stakeholders, advocating for grant funding, looking at tax breaks and loan programs, that kind of detail. The second one for me is housing stability and growth. Specifically, I'm looking at eviction protections and rent relief, adding affordable housing options to meet our RHNA allocation, new home buyer program, reducing the costs and barriers to new home construction, and other sorts of relief for our residents, things like relaxed parking ticketing. Next, I have strengthened police accountability and community relations. So what I'm looking at there is an expanded police commission with regular meetings, reevaluating the powers and responsibilities of the commission, a continued commitment to hiring diversity, and more community relation events, town halls, to have some of the difficult conversations I think we'd all be better for having. Please let me know if I'm going too quick for you, okay?
I just can't spell strengthen.
Okay, there we go. And I should note that I don't have a standalone goal for COVID-19 response, but for my colleagues' benefit, I would just say I think that it's a common thread among all of my goals. Number 4 is commitment to a sustainable future. And what I'm talking about there is putting our utility on track to 100% renewable energy by the end of the decade, updating our greenhouse gas reduction plan to meet state targets, following through on what we've talked about, our drought prevention plan and task force, making increased investments in solar energy and storage, that kind of thing. My next goal is to implement a 21st century transportation plan, which we have started. We're talking about regional mass transit connectivity in the form of rail and bus to connect Burbank with the other places we need to go. Continued expansion of the Chandler Bike Path, more investments in bike lanes, things we talk about in our Complete Streets plan, pedestrian safeguards, sidewalks, scrambled crosswalks, and one last point, I'll move on, looking at all of transportation through the lens of equity. Is it really serving the people in Burbank who need these transit systems the most? My next goal is improved homelessness services. So in that, I'm talking about supportive services for homeless families, looking at the future of the Boys and Girls Club site, improving our partnerships with existing nonprofits, and exploring options for interim housing, including taking advantage of funding through FEMA and Project Roomkey from the state. Okay, sorry, I'm just checking to make sure I wasn't going too quick. Next one is cultivating diversity and equity in our community. And by that, I mean prioritizing the diversification of our boards and commissions, looking at things like a commission for women's rights, and separately, a diversity, equity, inclusion commission, or a task force, or a staff member. And one other note I want to make, in last year's council goal setting, Vice Mayor Talamantes made an excellent point. It could be as simple as finally having city recognition of Cesar Chavez Day, whether it's a big structural change or something as simple as that, really cultivating our diversity and equity. Almost done. Next, I have ensuring workforce protections. So with that, I'm talking about PPE for our frontline workers, looking at HERO or hazard pay for our frontline workers, a right to return for COVID-19 affected employees, utilizing project labor agreements for publicly funded projects, things like that. My second to last goal is making community investments. And with that, I'm talking about a new central library, increased public arts projects, preservation of Magnolia Park and its small business corridor, and looking at things like a Citizens Ethics Commission. And last but not least, I have investing in wildfire preparation and resiliency. And what I'm talking about there is prioritizing defensible space zones and clearances. As we talked about in a previous meeting, BWP equipment upgrades, covered conductors, things like that. Recruiting and retaining Burbank firefighters and ensuring that they have the tools to do the job and preparing our community for any future disaster. And I think that's my full list.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember Schultz. I appreciate that. So I'll go back up to the top. And Councilmember Anthony, I think that you are next.
Okay, and there's 10 spaces there, right? That's what I'm saying?
There are 10 spaces there, yes.
Okay, I did do 10, so I'm matching this time. Okay. So the first one is housing assistance, and that includes rent and mortgage relief and eviction protections. Or actually, I'm sorry. I said the word prevention in mine. Eviction prevention. So, you know, I'd like to see what we can do to stop people from being out on the street. That's just me. Okay, number 2, support small businesses. I think that's self-explanatory. 3, tackle climate change. 4, address DEI citywide and in all departments. 5, streamline the development process.
Councilmember Anthony,
Yeah.
forgive me. Can you let me know what DEI stands for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought we said that earlier in the meeting. I'm sorry.
You may have. Thank you for that clarification.
Number 6, resume normal staffing levels. 7, universal access to public buildings and streets. You know, for me, that includes bike lanes, blue curbs, and, just multimodal mobility across the city. 8, promote outreach for boards and commissions. 9, increase protections and wages for our city's workforce. And lastly, increase financial assistance to our schools.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll scroll back up here, and I think Councilmember Springer is next.
These are not necessarily in order of importance, but
okay.
One is to maintain local control and to evaluate our policies and goals that we set forth here, and make sure that our policies further our goals and don't thwart them or impede them. Economic recovery, and that, includes the local control, and let's do it from the inside, help the businesses that are here. 2, broadband for every house, for all residents in Burbank. And there are 2 bills, AB 34 and AB 41, that address that. Wealth building, and that would include wealth building through home ownership, generational wealth, education and training, business ownership, including the real estate, child care, after school care. 4 is housing with 50% ownership with low down payments, renter and landlord security, a housing plan that includes corporate resident participation, expanded Section 8, more senior and missing middle housing and affordable housing, effective homeless reintegration into our community.
Hey, Councilmember Springer, is the homeless item a separate item from housing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Transportation, including furthering our EV goals, potential trolley on Magnolia, 15-minute train service through downtown Burbank, keeping BRT in the mix, though I was at the Transportation Commission meeting the other night, and anyway, and active transportation, including continuance of our bicycle master plan and protected bike lanes. Moving forward, our specific plans, the downtown Burbank TOD, the Golden State specific plan, media district, master environmental impact reports, so that part is done and it saves time. Addressing the abuse of CEQA for non-environmental purposes and collaborating with the state on that. Identified areas with for targeted redevelopment that includes relocation fees and right of return, and maybe potentially using the model that the Burbank Housing Corp uses. Sustainability to include achieving the 2,000 household subscription to the Green Choice Program, GHG reduction of the legacy load of carbon through soil regeneration, and other things, support MWD on their direct potable reuse, do what we can if needed or if intended to expand the recycled water master plan, exploit MWD turf removal, pick out a complete street project and integrate Green Street characteristics, citywide composting, maybe. Is that 10?
So I think I may have split one of yours into two. Do you mind if we just, do you mind looking at them really quick? So I ended up with 11, which is actually, that's fine. But I want to be sure that I didn't split one of them up accidentally. Can you read them, or would you like me to read them to you?
No, I can read them. Maintain local control and evaluate policies, goals. Evaluate policies and their impact on the goals that we're deciding here. Economic recovery, broadband for every house, wealth building, housing, homelessness, transportation. Yep.
Does that seem like I got them?
I can follow up and put these in an email, just so you know that these are broad, but just so that.
Councilmember Springer, let's keep your goals here present with us so all council members can weigh in. Obviously, because we all have to come to a consensus at the end. So if you can keep it so everybody knows. Thank you.
Sustainability is a big one, and the Green Choice Program, which is being implemented right now. I had lots of items under there to help achieve that goal of sustainability.
And I think that keeping it broad with sustainability meets what we are trying to do today, but certainly you absolutely should share your more detailed list with us, and we can take a look at that as well. So I think that Councilmember Springer, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Just the different things under it, but I mean, we could be here all afternoon to get into the nitty gritty. You don't want me to get in the weeds.
Correct.
Right, Councilmember Springer, we're specifically trying to avoid the weeds for today because we got a whole year to get into the weeds. So we'll get into the weeds later.
So thank you, Councilmember Springer. So Vice Mayor Talamantes, I think you're next.
Yes, thank you. And just as a point of clarification, these are goals for the next 12 months, right?
That's correct.
We're not talking 5 years, 10 years down the road. This is 12 months goal. Okay, I just want to make it clear. Okay, so mine are the first one, which is obviously at the forefront of everything we've been talking about for the last 11 months, pandemic recovery. The next one would be business recovery. The third one that kind of goes hand in hand with the top two is eviction moratorium. The next one would be focus on the budget. We still have to maintain a focus on the budget. The next one would be police, fire, recruitment, and retention. The next one would be to set up a centralized department.
To set up a centralized department?
To assist business/residents with paperwork and direction. Some people just don't know where to go, what to do. You know, you hear that there's monies available out there for small business. I just want to make it a place where you can come and ask your questions and then get direction from whoever's behind the counter or on the other side of the desk.
Okay.
Improve on homelessness services. Address diversity issues.
Okay.
And then housing / jobs imbalance. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Talamontes. Mayor Frutos, I believe you are our last one.
I like the vice mayor came prepared for what we can achieve in 12 months, but I like the ideas of my colleagues, but I only came prepared to hopefully give my goals for 12 months, because that's what we're here. So here I go. In dealing with boards and commissions, I like the whole council to review, the policies, make sure that our board and commissioners are being trained, sexual harassment type training, and specifically looking at every individual one. And since I liaison on the police commission, not getting into the weeds, but to give you where I'm going, is that I think the time has come that maybe the council should consider as a body giving the police commission direction versus what we've done in the past. So I'd like to see that as one of our goals. Do you need more, Betsy, or?
I don't. I can put police commission specifically since you mentioned them.
Okay. Transportation, I would like to see, thinking outside of the box, hopefully a bus-type trolley system that I keep lobbying every year for, to try to have a fun way of improving our transportation system, because I still see empty buses. I like to utilize our state lobbyists to lobby for new legislation for homeless services, including revisiting how the laws are set up, that sometimes they really kind of hinder the city. See if we can think outside the box and lobby for legislative change in Sacramento through our lobbyists. Under economic development, I like to see how we're going to utilize and maximize the most efficient way the president's economic stimulus for cities, as he's still working on that. I like to look at the DeBell Golf Course and visit the par 3 course to see what the council can come up with, as maybe we can find a better use of the par 3 course, which isn't really utilized. Then my next goal would be visit the infrastructure improvement needs for our nature center. It looks like it needs a little love now, if you've been up there in a while. I'd like to review where we can possibly look at for council's consideration on joint ventures with Glendale and Pasadena to help us deliver better service while saving money for the budget. Maybe we can look at, consolidating jointly different type services that are unique, that we're doing the same thing they are, but maybe if, like, for example, we have our crime lab, we have the Verdugo Fire Dispatch Center, we have our joint operations with our police helicopter. Maybe we can look at that and look at ways to improve service for the residents while at the same time maybe saving money for the budget. Definitely it's a big wish list, but I like to bring back our summer park patrol during the summer months. And I got 2 more to make my 10 wish list. I like to revisit what would be the possibility of looking at the McCambridge swimming pool replacement, as it's getting older and older. And we've got a really great pool that's utilized a lot at Verdugo, just as a wish list. And then my final one, because we've added so much development, and we're still moving on with more development for housing as the council's goal. I like to see if maybe it's time we review the staffing level of our fire department based upon the paramedic calls for service to make sure that we have the resources in place for the needs of the community. And those are my wish list. Thank you.
All right. Scroll back up here. Okay, so council members, thank you so much for sharing your goals. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 10-minute break. And what I'm going to attempt to do is to organize your goals into broad categories. And after the break, the council will have an opportunity to vote for their top 5 broad categories that they would want to work on for the next year. Now, certainly there are going to be outliers, some that we may not be able to fit. And so after the break, you'll be able to see the categories that we group them in and make some decisions. Did I misgroup? Are there ways that we can combine a little bit more? So that's the plan. Are there any questions at this point? And if not, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. See you in 10 minutes then. Thank you so much.
Okay, Ms. Clintox, we're back. I give you the meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see. So what we did, that we do with every goal setting, is we try to group the council's goals. And these are the goals that we came up with, these are the broad categories. We tried to group the council's individual goals into broad categories. And these are the categories that we came up with. And I can scroll down so you can see where we put each of your individual council goals. Again, you're color coded. And if we've miscategorized one, you have an opportunity to let us know. But the goals, the overall categories that we came up with are planning, economic recovery and development, housing, homelessness, sustainability, city services, quality of life, transportation, and infrastructure. And then I do want to mention there were 2 items that were outliers that we weren't able to place in one of these broad categories. And those were maintain local control and evaluate policies and goals set forth today, and that those policies further the goals, and then increase financial assistance to schools. Those were our 2 outliers. So I'll go ahead and put them up here so we can see them. And then I'll just scroll down for a moment so you can see where we placed each of the goals. And as I do that, if any of the council members have any comments, please let me know.
Betsy?
Yes.
Regarding funding for school,
Yes.
I think that's a little bit, and please help me, because of the charter and the 2 different legislative bodies, unless we increase our school joint use agreement fees, is that really something the city council can, if that was one of our goals, to give funding from the general fund to schools? I mean, I think there's a conflict there. So if we really physically can't do that, then shouldn't it be off the table instead of just keeping it there? I need help from somebody, because if I read the charter correctly, and I'm not trying to say no, but objectively, and again, reverence for the law and policy, isn't there a policy about that? Unless we raise our school joint usage fees, I don't want to keep something there that's just not realistic. Those are just my thoughts. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I mean, there are ways to look at that. We'd have to explore that and look at
Okay.
ways to do that. So at this point, I'd leave it on. It is an
Okay.
outlier that doesn't necessarily fall into a category that we know. But yeah, you know, if council was adamant about wanting to do something, we'd certainly look into it.
Okay.
So I'd say leave it for now.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
So again, I'll go ahead and scroll slowly down so you can locate where we put your particular items. And then what we will do at this point is each of the council members will have an opportunity to vote for 5 of their top 5 broad category items. In the past, when we've not done this virtually, we actually have given you stickies and you've gone up and voted. Obviously, we can't do that today. So what I have virtual stickies that each council member will be able to tell me where to place their particular votes for each of their 5 general categories that they would like to vote for. So unless there are any questions about how we named the categories or where we placed your particular items for each categories, I'll pause a second just in case there are questions, and if they're not, we can commence with the individual voting.
I do have one, Mr. Mayor. Am I?
Go ahead, Councilmember Schultz, be free and just start
Thank
the
you.
conversation, sir.
You know, one thing that I see here is transportation and infrastructure, and I'm just wondering if perhaps those could be combined into one common goal. And I know they're not exactly the same, but there is overlap between those two in my mind.
I guess to join in the discussion, council member, because we have Measure P funds that were voted by the public, which specifically go for infrastructure, I think to give respect to all the council members that wanted something with transportation because of the different pots of funding, I think it would be easier for the city manager, as if that is one of our goals, say, the nature center. That might be something that might fall under Measure P money if that's what it worked its way up. And transportation would come out of the gasoline return sales tax. I know Vice Mayor Talamantes knows a lot of the money that's coming from Metro, and he always, so I'd rather just leave it the way it is and see where we come out.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question, excuse me, Ms. McClinton.
Yes.
So after we vote, like, I understand Councilmember Schultz's concern about, like, maybe we don't want to lose anything, let's in infrastructure. So would we, if infrastructure falls out, then we would move it over to transportation? And also have a question about broadband for every house. It seems to me that should be in city services, even though I know we provide some of it. But I think it should be in city services.
But that would, to join you, Councilmember Springer, but that would be a goal to see, because that's called policy change. We would be creating a policy, which would be our goal. And that's why we have to vote on it.
Right. Right, but we're voting on like city services, and I feel like, we already have broadband through BWP, and if we tuck it there, it doesn't get lost. And if there are a couple bills for broadband expansion, and so if we can support those, because it's an equity issue, and I think we've really learned that in this pandemic, the importance of that.
But in trying to lead us through this exercise, I would recommend we leave it on there and let the council vote. You can also bring it up at a later date, especially during the budget, to see how much it might cost to add broadband to every home. So there's another way of going if we don't get it as one of our 5 goals for the year, if that makes any sense.
The other thing I would remind the council is that we are really looking at very broad, high-level priority areas or priority categories. So if city services receives enough votes, certainly there is going to be discussion within the council on specifics, right? These are just very broad goals. And if city services gets onto the final list, the staff under the city manager would bring back specifics for items that fall into that broad category. So I don't think that there's any sort of issue with recategorizing broadband for every house. If city services gets enough votes, that would be a broad goal. And then if there's support on the council to tackle that specific item, certainly that would be the council's choice. But again, these are very broad goals, and it's an art in terms of categorizing these. So you could certainly argue for a lot of these to be in different places.
Yeah, I guess some of them aren't mine, are really good, and I would just hate that they just disappear, is my point. And if we can tuck them under a broad goal, I support that. And also, as far as local control and making sure the policies that we adopt support our goals, I feel like that should just be an overlay in everything that we do. Just my opinion, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. But I can bring it up at local control is so important. Maybe that's it's in our legislative platform, and I don't know where we tucked it in, if we tucked it in last time, but
And I think, Councilmember Springer, I think your point about it being in the council's legislative platform, I think that's exactly on point. That's something that the council's already provided direction on as part of that document. So I think it's definitely not going to get lost if it's not included in one of the categories because you've already included it in your platform.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in that, we can't add all of these boxes into our goals. That just
Correct.
doesn't seem,
Well,
it seems a little ridiculous. So we just have to give and take.
Yep.
I want all of mine to be in, for sure, definitely. But, if we're giving 5 apiece, that's 25 goals. Is that realistic for the 12 months that are coming?
Well, you know what? Let's do like we've done in the past. Let's take the vote and let's see where the number of dots move forward, and we start working our 5 goals to be fair to everybody, because everybody's ideas are great, they're important, and let's start with the voting, and let's see where we end up.
Let's hear what Betsy has to, her instructions on how we move forward.
So that Mayor Frutos has taken us right to the next step, which would be for each of the council members to identify their top 5 categories that they would want to vote for. And so the first council member that would be up is Council Member Schultz.
Thank you. I'll vote for 5. I'll just mention that I'm not voting for transportation or infrastructure, but not because I don't care. I think those are essential city functions. So with that in mind, my votes would be for economic recovery and development, number 1. Number 2, housing/homelessness. Number 3, sustainability. Number 4, city services. Number 5, quality of life.
All right. Thank you so much, Councilmember Schultz. Councilmember Anthony?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. McClinton. Can you scroll down a bit? I
can.
Can't read the very bottom ones there.
Let me know when you'd like me to stop scrolling.
I'll come down a little bit more. Okay, yeah, right there. Let's see. Come down a little bit more. Is there something at the bottom? Oh wow. Okay. And
these
then
are all the city service items.
Oh, okay. Those aren't in 2 different categories.
No, these are all city services. Yeah.
Okay, that makes it easier. Okay, I think then, yeah, okay, so my 5 match Nick's as well. You went right with my 5. I'll do the same. That was easy.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilmember Anthony. Councilmember Springer?
I have economic recovery, housing and homelessness, sustainability, city services, and quality of life.
All right, thank you so much.
I'm seeing a trend, you guys. I'm seeing a trend.
Vice Mayor Talamantes?
I'm on board with my 3 colleagues. Day ones. And like Councilmember Schultz mentioned, it's not that I'm anti-transportation or infrastructure. I think that's already been worked on throughout the course of, of different commissions. And the city manager already has a roadmap on what has to be done there. So I think these are the 5 items that I'm for. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Talamantes. And finally, Mayor Frutos.
I will be joining my colleagues.
Great. We will move our sticky notes over to make it official. All right, so it looks like for 2021, the 5 overarching council goals that council's agreed on are economic recovery and development, housing, homelessness, sustainability, city services, and quality of life. Staff will review this list of goals and use this information to create a work plan for this year. And as both council and staff work through these goals, it's important to remember the pledges that we made to each other about how you work as a council and also how council and staff work together. So I just want to thank council so much for this goal setting process. I know virtually it was a little cumbersome, so I appreciate your patience with it. And I'm really excited with the 5 goals that we have. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Prescott, who will recap and close the meeting for us. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, Betsy?
Yes.
So are we going to may we have this, because I can't see the whole thing?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you.
clean it up and send it off to you, to the council, so that you can see all of the details. So I appreciate your patience with the technology.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, council. On behalf of Betsy McClinton, Kevin Gray, city manager, and myself, I want to thank the city council for allowing us to facilitate this meeting and work with you this afternoon. I think it's helpful for the public to see you working together like this, your commitment, the way you deliberate together collegially for the benefit of the entire community. So thank you. I speak, I believe, for the entire executive team when I say we are committed to living up to the expectations set forth in the documents you would be voting on this afternoon, and to pursuing successful implementation of your goals in the next year. So it's now time, Betsy, correct me if I'm wrong, for the council to vote on the two documents, council, how we work together, and council's expectation of staff, as well as the goals, the final goals. So now I can hand it back to Mayor Frutos for that.
Thank you, Mr. Prescott, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you, thank you to the rest of the team, and for Kevin Gray. Go Raiders! Okay, would a council member like to make the motion? Council Member Anthony.
Actually, a point of order.
Okay.
Is Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to maybe add a word or two or change some of these phrases? Or is that possible today?
Ms. Prescott?
Yes.
Okay, bring it up, sir.
Okay, just three little small ones. Under working together on number 6, avoid unnecessarily disruptive or divisive comments. That's my first proposal. Second, under communication and transparency, number 2, just the wording of this was a little tough for me. I'd like to change it to both the law and good governance occasionally requires information to be kept confidential. I can repeat that one if you want.
Mr.
Both
Prescott.
The law and good governance occasionally requires information to be kept confidential.
Mr. City Manager? Yeah, Madam City Attorney? We're good.
And then lastly, under communication transparency, next page, number 6, strive to talk to each other or during and after meetings, or if people want, feel free to. I just don't want to make it sound like we have to spend every minute chatting with each other. That one I can give or take, but the other two I think were important.
Mr. City Manager? Staff is okay, council members. If we're good, we can just either give a nod or.
Can you guys like that one?
Do I see 5 nods? Okay,
Can
we
you
have 5
please-
nods officially for.
What?
Oh,
I
Sharon.
think Sharon.
Oh, you have a
Can you-
question. I'm sorry, Sharon. Go ahead, ma'am.
Can you please recap them? Because I
Yep.
wasn't keeping up with the numbers. Thank you.
Sure. Under working together, number 6,
Okay.
unnecessarily disruptive or divisive comments. And then number 2, it was just the wording of it. It was a little funky for me. I want to put both the law and good governance occasionally requires information to be kept confidential. And then on number 6, under that same communication transparency, just at the beginning, put the phrase strive to talk to each other. And then I'm fine with the other document. I like what that was put together.
Councilmember Springer, you okay with it?
No, yeah, I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay, so want to
you.
make sure, I see 5 nods, yes? Got it, Mr. City Manager? Madam City Attorney, we're good? Okay, if somebody would like to, thank you, Councilmember Anthony. If somebody would like to make a motion to 1, adopt the city goals, and 2, adopt the city documents, how we work together and expectations of staff. Vice Mayor would like to make the motion, and who would like to do the second? I see Councilmember Schultz. Madam City Clerk?
Vice Mayor Talamantes?
Yes.
Councilmember Schultz?
Yes.
Councilmember Anthony?
Yes.
Councilmember Springer?
Yes.
Mayor Frutos?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council members, thank you very much for working through this together as one team. And thank you, because now we know what we're going to be doing for the next 12 months and how we can obviously hold our city manager accountable to these goals as we work as one team. Thank you very much. For members of the public, we are now going to adjourn to Tuesday, February the 9th at 6 p.m. for a joint meeting through an online meeting process. The public may view the meeting online or on television and will be able to provide public comment in the following 3 ways. By leaving an e-comment on the city's webpage, burbankca.gov/economics, e-comments, again, burbankca.gov/e-comments, or by emailing the City Council directly at citycouncil@burbankca.gov. Again, that email address is citycouncil@burbankca.gov. Sorry for confusing you. Again, that email address is citycouncil@burbankca.gov, or you can call in directly to the council meeting at 818-238-3335. Again, that phone number to call in on Tuesday is 818-238-3335. Thank you, and have a good evening, council members and members of the public and staff.